Well, hello folks, and I hope you're all well out there. And yes, this is another hard drive mashup, which is a combination of 3 hunts that didn't quite go as well as I'd hoped to, but weren't a total failure, edited together into one sort of video to make it worthwhile watching. Now, this first hunt was back in April, when we had a fairly heavy fall of snow overnight, right at the start of lambing season. Now, I don't get to shoot in the snow too often, and I thought it'd be brilliant to get up early, get out, get some really nice footage, and maybe some crows while I'm at it. But it didn't quite go to plan, but I didn't end up empty-handed anyhow. Bit of a winter wonderland this morning, but I'm going to have a go at the hooded crows. And I've brought suitable camouflage netting. Bought this years ago, and this is the first chance I've ever had to try it out, so hopefully it's not too white. Now, the first birds to arrive were actually a pair of magpies, and not crows unfortunately, who were pretty quick at taking advantage of the dead rabbit I had set out for bait. Now, the hooded crows are really what I'm after, as they are a much greater danger to the lambs than the magpies. So I let the magpies feed away in peace, hoping that they might help decoy a hooded crow down. After a while, the magpies got so confident with the situation that one of them decided to attack the hooded crow I had set up as a decoy. At one point, I thought he was going to pull the crow right off the wire cradle I had it set up on. I honestly think he was trying to show off to his mate, "Look how brave and strong I am, dear." But she didn't look too impressed at all. I think he probably would have had better luck if he had managed to hang a set of curtains or put up a bookshelf for her or something. And here's why I'm up at stupid o'clock in freezing conditions, to try and help safeguard these little lambs, who probably got the shock of their lives waking up this morning to find their whole world covered in this soft, white, cold, fluffy stuff. Anyway, back to the magpies, who by now had probably ate their fill, so they were tearing pieces of rabbit off and burying it in the deep snow, probably for later on. Now, how they find these pieces again, I do not know, but I have seen them do this over and over again in the past. Unfortunately, while I was trying to zoom the camera into one close to the hide, it spotted the movement and started giving off warning calls, so I decided it was time I stopped watching and started shooting before I lost the opportunity. And it's down. I was using my custom Ruger 1022 this morning with CCI subsonics, which made short work of the Magpie, even though it did run off camera. After that, the weather really started to deteriorate, with flurries of snow on and off. And even though I did go out and shake the snow off of the rabbit and the decoy, and even set the magpie I just shot up as a decoy, nothing else would come near me. So, once the snow sort of eased a bit, I decided to call it quits. Alright. Looks the job. Well, that's the setup. Then rabbit and the crow decoy, which got pulled about a bit. I had to reset it. And the Magpie I shot, I set up as a decoy, but just couldn't get any other hooded crows. They were in the distance somewhere. I don't know where, but they wouldn't come anywhere near me, unfortunately. And the snow keeps coming and going, so it might not be for happening. So just going to call it quits and pack up, go home and get warmed up again. Well, I didn't get a hooded crow, but man, I still think I got some nice snow footage, which made it worthwhile getting up at such an early hour. Now, I'm sure some of you will probably recognise this spot from a hunt I did not so long ago, where I managed to get 4 hooded crows, using the same techniques as I'm using here. Unfortunately, even though that was a few weeks prior to this, the hooded crows definitely had wised up quite a bit, and unfortunately give me a real run round this morning. This time I took the CZ 527 and 17 Hornet with me this morning, as there's always a possibility of a fox round here. And no, it's not the rimfire, this is a Centerfire cartridge and I'm using home loads. Also, I'm filming through the scope with the Tacticam 5.0 and the FTS unit. Now, I've only been sitting for about 3/4 of an hour when a hooded crow comes floating in from behind me and lands fairly close to the dead rabbit I set out for bait. It's about 75 to 80 yards away. The 20 grain VMAX hit home hard, and even though it done a wee bit of a breakdance, it's dead. After a while, another hooded crow turned up and flew in from behind again and really looked as if it was going to land. But instead of landing on the ground, it landed up in a nearby tree. But it didn't stay too long before it cleared off again. But I was pretty confident it would be back again, because even the local Rooks and Jackdaws were showing an interest in the dead crow I'd shot. But after a bit more fruitless waiting, I decided to try and spice things up again by setting out another dead hooded crow as a decoy that I had brought with me that morning. And this looked as if it was finally going to work, as 2 hooded crows came swooping down in from a tree behind me, only to back off at the last second and land up in the tree the same as the first bird. The birds are only about 70 yards away, but I'm using a Centerfire rifle and there's no safe backstop, so I can't take the shot. It's one of those few times where an FAC air rifle probably would have been better. I'm not really sure what was putting the crows off. It wasn't the hide, because you can see the local Rooks and Jackdaws were more than happy to land in front of the hide and feed away. The Rooks don't really bother the sheep. They're more interested in looking for worms and leather jackets to feed their young, so I leave them well alone. I did try changing my setup a time or two through the morning. I tried it with decoys, I tried it without decoys, but the crows just wouldn't land on the ground. So after a while I decided to call it quits. The crows had just outsmarted me this morning, but at least I got one of them. Now in this particular hunt, I'm back up on the hill again. Now I've shot quite a few hooded crows and even a few magpies up here over the years. But this morning I decided to change where I usually set the hide up, as well as changing the bait from the usual dead magpie, get my words right, a dead rabbit, to a little fake nest with some eggs in it, because I think the crows were starting to wise up to me. Again, I took my CZ527 in 17 Hornet this morning, which is a Centerfire cartridge, not a rimfire. I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record, but it surprises you how many people make the mistake every time I put a video up with it. I used to use a 22 Magnum up here years ago, but I prefer the 17 Hornet a lot more now that I've got onto it. It's got a far flatter trajectory and you can reach out a lot further, which is really handy over such open terrain. Now I've been sitting for over an hour with neither sight nor sound of a crow, so decided to use a crow call I brought with me. Something I don't usually use because I don't think I'm very good at it, but this morning I thought it might be the only way a crow will find my setup with all this low cloud and mist about. And what do you know, after an hour or two, one finally did turn up. And it sounds like it's really browned off. It's about 85 to 90 yards away. And the 17 Hornet scores again. So I went straight back onto the crow call again. And yes, you guessed it, a second one turns up, but this one's a bit more cautious and lands a bit further away, about 125 yards. It's a dead on hold for the 17 Hornet. There's no wind, no excuse, but yep, you guessed it, I missed. The bullet seemed to just skim over its back. Close, but no cigar. I sat for probably a couple of hours after that miss. I tried the crow call on and off. I even tried setting the bird I just shot up as a decoy, but no luck at all. The crows just wouldn't come anywhere near me. They had learned their lesson, so all I could do was call it a morning. Well, that almost went to plan. I set up my decoy bird on the little wire cradle, which is well stuck into the ground. That's a fake egg, delf egg. They use them to put hens in the mood for laying. And I have a wee nest made out of raffia, a couple of eggs and a wee toy chick, instead of using a dead rabbit, because I've used a dead rabbit here quite a few times and I think the birds are catching on to the idea it's not good for their health to come down to it. And after about 3 hours waiting, I managed to whack that bird and then set him up as a decoy. I'll not show you the opening the wee 17 Hornet made, but you can see by the feathers lying on the ground it done a good bit of damage. Then I missed one sitting over there. It was about 125 yards. Don't know what I did wrong, there's no wind out here, but I ended up missing one. And nothing came near me after that. Open bit of ground, so I was using the crow call, something I don't usually do, but I was hoping to get the birds to find me easier. But it sort of almost went to plan. I got one bird and missed a second one, but what can you do? At least I got something for the day. I know this seems like such open and barren land, but you hear so much birdsong up here, and if you listen in the background you might even hear the cuckoo. Well folks, I hope you enjoyed that bit of a mishmash of videos, and if anything it goes to prove that you can't always get a big bag of crows every time you go out. But anyway, look after yourselves and take care, hey.